Hello. At 5 in the morning you sent a very colorful message asking for anti-Voiceover tech. I watched the replays and noticed that you make a lot of the same fundamental mistakes as opposed to matchup specific ones. So in this video we're going to be going over your footsies, pressure, game plan, and defense. A lot of this feedback is going to sound negative, but it was not made in malice. I feel like if you take a lot of this to heart, you're going to become a much better player than you are currently, and it's going to make you enjoy fighting games a lot more. To maximize watchability, whenever I go over a point, I'm typically going to be also showing you gameplay in the background, as you can see currently happening on screen, but there will also be timestamps in the description showing you exactly where things happen. Well, without further ado, let's get into the first of the two games that we're going to be analyzing today. Round 1 of every set is what I like to call the analytical portion. Don't let the name fool you, since you're always supposed to be analyzing your opponent, but it's much more important in this round. By default, you and your opponent do not know anything about each other, and I like to see the first round as you two getting to know each other. This is where you play incredibly safe to get a feel for your opponent's habits, and see how they generally play the game. You should by default have a safe game plan where you do things that are low risk, such as always doing a meaty to see if they like to block it or do a reversal. And if they start doing reversals and wake up, you can start blocking and punishing. Essentially, you should look at your own game plan as though it were a blueprint and start adding and removing things from it. Like if they jump a lot on wake up, you remove Oki throw and introduce anti-airs. Things like this is super simple yet effective at all levels of play. So let's see how you take on the first round of the set. You establish super early that projectiles aren't going to work on you, which is very good to do early. You only need to establish it once to make the opponent think twice. This applies to everything, like jumping a command grab, taking a throw, blocking a DP, or jumping a fireball like in this case. Unfortunately, when you get into the corner, your offense kind of collapses. In Machabo's text, Machabo on Fundamentals for those who want to become good at Guilty Gear, Machabo talks about the mind games between the initiator and the receiver. The initiator always has the advantage because they can force a situation where the opponent has to play around. In the example given, Machabo talks about Axel versus Soul Bad Guy at full screen, a situation where Axel has the definitive advantage because no matter what, Soul has to play around Renson. A situation like this is not an RPS, because Soul always has to play around Axel's options, and not the other way around. Therefore, the initiator has the advantage. So how does this relate to Granblue? Well, when in the corner, you are always the receiver. Because whereas in footsies, where you're both on equal footing because you can both give up and gain space, while in the corner, you can only gain space. This makes every pixel contested, and with the addition of the massive damage of corner combos, it's just not a position you ever want to be in. In this situation, you decide the pace of the match completely, and your opponent can only directly respond to what you're doing. You're Axel, and the opponent is Soul at full screen. While on offense, your structure is all over the place. You make a lot of mistakes, for instance ending your block strings in the Ground Viper. That is minus 12 on block. It's a wonder that your opponent didn't just block it a single time there. And then you also re-jump a lot, which is for most 90% of players it's a free anti-air. Your opponent doesn't punish it as he should, however this is a big pitfall that's going to come back at you later on if you keep playing like this. As an addendum to help you structure your offense, you should never end a string on minus frames because your opponent can just take their turn with a jab. Turns are abstract, and you should never give up a turn for free. You should always end it with a gamble, for instance ending a block string early and then going for a throw. If they tech it, then you've lost your turn. But if they don't tech it, or if they do the delayed jab instead of a tech in this game, then you can just keep going your offense. It's still your turn. You just got 2 turns for the price of 1. Your lack of offensive structure and insistence to end on non-confirmable buttons that are minus on block lead to the opponent escaping. This is not a good situation to be in, because you're giving up a lot of damage when real offensive pressure and it could have led to combos that killed. The opponent got way too many chances to play, and you should minimize this with good offense and combos. Never let them pay health to get out. In neutral, you throw a lot of random haymakers no matter what game or character. You're also super happy to spend meter when it doesn't really do anything for you, like in this case where you're throwing ultimate fireballs at full screen against a character who hasn't shown any anti-fireball options yet. He has shown that he's very eager to get armor, and he seems to really like to do random fireball into armor. And in general in this matchup you should never let him armor ever, and you're doing a pretty decent job of that, but at the same time you're very slow on your jump-ins and you're very slow on your actions. You don't make a decision fast enough, and it's letting him get away with a lot of stuff that he shouldn't. Round 2 after winning round 1 is an ample spot to experiment because you have a full round as a safety net behind you. You can start playing more unsafe and be a bit cheekier with your game plan, and if it doesn't work, revert to your safe game plan that won you round 1. In the grand scheme of things, you have 2 available life bars and they only have 1. In a game like Street Fighter 6, this round is where I'd save my meter and only use it if it kill, because meter is super important in that game, and a level 3 can turn the tide and win the resource war in the final round in case I lose. But in a game like Granblue, where everything in a round stays in a round, you can afford to pay resources for data, and I'd highly recommend doing so. However, in this round, pure analysis wise, the same mistake as prior apply, but you did get some pretty nice hit confirms and generally controlled the game way better by not randomly spending meter to do nothing. Your opponent has used a single bravery point to guard cancel, which is a humongous mistake that you should 100% capitalize on. But let's move on to game 2. Game 2 is where you can start employing the stuff you learned from game 1 and turn up the heat. By now you should have a clear understanding of what they like to do in what situations and can start to use it against them. You should also pay attention to what your opponent has adapted to you, since you're not playing against an AI that does the same things every single time. As a rushdown character against a grappler, you should never give them breathing room. Beatrix is peak rushdown and have a lot of ways to get plus frames, so you're giving up a bunch of advantage and letting the Vasaraga player do whatever he wants instead of snuffing his ability to play by doing good rushdown. Additionally, he's proven to you that his defense is lackluster in game 1 by just sitting there and always mashing after an auto combo ends. You should have no worries pushing your advantages and forcing a strong frame trap for massive damage. As mentioned in the previous section, every round your gauge is reset. This includes your bravery points, and while taking damage in a round sounds scary, it's nowhere near as scary as spending a single point to gain a bunch of advantage in the form of corner carry and damage. Bravery points turn a bad hit confirm into a good one if you're willing to spend 25% of your meter for a follow-up. Similarly, paying a single bravery point to get them off you and turning to neutral can get you out of a lot of sticky situations, and is similarly a misplay to not do so. Dying with all 3 bravery points is like dying with a full stick of butter in Exerd. You should see every round as a set of interactions, of which you and your opponent will have the average. For Granblue, I'd say 3 is a good average number on account of the average combo damage being a third of your life bar without any other damage booster like the corner. If you get 3 good hit confirms, your opponent should die. Similarly, they have the same power over you. This is the reason slow snowball characters like Jamie in Street Fighter 6 are considered weaker. Since while every other character can free touch you, Jamie needs to get his drinks up to really do big damage and have good tools available, which leads to him needing up to like 7 interactions to kill. You can naturally decrease your opponent's interactions by optimizing combos, spending more meter, recognizing mistakes faster, cleaning up your offensive pressure, and many more minor things. These are all things you can train right now by going into training mode and focusing on improving at it, and then going into matches and doing it against real people. Best way to improve at things like this is to focus on a specific thing during a whole session, like routing your B&Bs better, and then go into long sets with a friend or multiple randoms and just focus on hitting that combo until you've got it. Analysis wise, I feel personally that if you'd focused on these things, you would have likely won every game of the set because you'd have been playing with much more awareness than your opponent. I'm starting to feel satisfied with everything we've talked about so far, so let's wrap it up with one last thing. At this point, I feel like I've gone over the main bits of theory I want to go over, the biggest pitfalls of your game plan and things that will make you better as a player. One last bit I'd like to talk about is fireball theory. In most modern fighting games, throwing fireballs at full screen does nothing. You're not threatening them, which is ideally what you should do with a fireball. A fireball is much more than a long-range poke. It's a tool with which to control the pace and flow of a game. Throwing it at full screen predictably leaves you unable to follow up, which means the opponent can dodge it or parry it like in Street Fighter. Is throwing fireball at full screen without uses? No. You can use it to force the opponent to interact with something while you return to mid-screen where you can put pressure on them by threatening a fireball or a dash up or a ground viper or nothing. Like the initiator and receiver thing we talked about earlier, you're adding to their mental stack because it is a tool you can throw out at will. Mental stack is a big topic in fighting games that I won't be going over in this video for brevity's sake, since this video is focusing on fundamental mistakes in theory. I'd like to finish up this video by stating the obvious. Not everybody wants to play safe. Some people just want to place their hand on the table immediately and go all in, which is fine, but having a playstyle like this is risky unless you know how to also play safe. Bursts of risky options is fine to test or throw up your opponent, but consider that playing safer will also let you play more and by proxy have more chances to win. Don't put all of your eggs in one basket. Like with drawing, playing an instrument, or any skill-based thing in general, you should learn fundamentals before going crazy with it. I think you'd enjoy fighting games a lot more with this in mind because you'll be playing with thought, and once you have that, you can start playing with feeling. That's all I got for now. I'd like to give an extra thanks to Ruckus for helping me revamp and discuss the script, and Gasonic for giving me feedback on the visual front. Once again, I hope this is going to help you improve and at the very least give you something to think about in the match. I'd also like to thank you for watching and giving me a bit of your time to yap about video games. But yeah, that's all I got for now. See you around and have fun grinding.